Good afternoon. You're watching Business World Live. I'm Jess De Los Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Tuesday. All right, the index having a more convincing rally today compared to how it fared yesterday. Local shares advanced 0.6% to 7,065.55, with holding firms gaining the most. The sector is up by as much as 1.5%. If we try to take a look at this chart right here, you'd see it's a whopping surge here for Alliance Global. The stock climbed 6.5% to 10 pesos and 78 centavos a share. That's following a share buyback transaction of some 569,000 common shares priced at a little over 10 pesos a piece. Other holding firms here also on the uptrend. As you can see here, you have GT Capital ending Tuesday in the positive territory. That's up 0.39%. SM Investments likewise also enjoying gains here. That edged higher 3.5%. DMCI likewise also, as you can see, increasing shares by 2.4%. But it's the financials we need to be taking a closer look at today. The gauge is up by 1/3%. This on the heels of reports, that bad loans dropped for the first time in a year, rather, at least for the month of December last year. Well, that, of course, you have coming from a report from the Philippine Star citing BSP data that gross non-performing loans declined by 2.3% month on month in December to 91.66 billion pesos. That narrows bad loan ratio to 3.61%, although that still marks a 2% increase year on year. A BSP survey of banks prior to that, of course, yielded a 4.6% NPL ratio expectation. So the preliminary data, definitely a surprise here for lenders. As you can see, Union Bank surprising here, that is up 2.5%. PNB also, as you can see, in the green here, advancing 2.1%. Likewise, some of our major lenders, the likes of BDO, BPI, and even Metro Bank, ending the day in the green. However, it's a different story here for the likes of Security Bank and RCBC, with both lenders declining by over 2%. But one stock that had investor appetite increasing today, Frutas, the stock saw shares climb as much as 4.5%. Earlier today, the board said it is among 6 stocks which will be listed to the industrial counter starting Monday next week. Shares, though, pared back gains here. It ended Tuesday, as you can see in this chart right here, represented by the white line. That ended Tuesday up just 1.3% to 1 peso and 58 centavos a share. But a more sustained rally, though, for Excelum, as represented in this orange line right here in the chart below. The stock will also join the industrial sector. Shares jumped 3.2% to 3 pesos and 57 centavos a share. Other companies added to sector indices include All Home, Agri-Nurture, Phoenix Petroleum, Rojas, and SFA Semicon. PSC President Ramon Monzon says their inclusion signifies that investor interest in these stocks continued even after their IPO. One stock, though, that we need to look into as well would have to be Apollo. That saw a 17.4% jump. This has got to be its steepest jump yet in a week, following its registration for a follow-on share sale. They want to cop as much as 1 billion pesos from the fundraiser. Proceeds will be used for offshore magnetite iron mine project. The stock once again staging a 2-day rally, now priced at 25 centavos apiece. Now, here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Trade Department expects tax breaks and incentives under the CREATE bill to generate as much as 2 million jobs. Trade Secretary Mon Lopez says, based on estimates, the tax reform measure can bring in over 200 billion pesos worth of new investments that could boost job creation. The Finance Department previously estimated 1.4 million new jobs over a decade under the older version of CREATE. The DTI now says the updated version that's now with President Duterte for signing may cut the time frame short. Some industry groups have flagged that the loss of fiscal perks under CREATE could harm the country's attractiveness to foreign investors and drive unemployment higher. Now, only one party submitted a bid for the contract to provide train sets for the Japan-funded North-South Commuter Railway project. That's the joint venture of the Sumitomo Corporation and the Japan Transport Engineering Company, or JTREC. The contract covers the manufacturing of 38 eight-car train sets. Technical support must also be provided alongside the train sets. A bid security of 1 billion yen was also set. The Sumitomo JTREC joint venture previously signed a contract with the DOTR to provide 240 train cars for the first phase of the Metro Manila subway project. The DOTR says the next stage will be the evaluation of the submitted bid. The department is targeting to award the contract for the railway extension project by June. House lawmakers now want additional stimulus worth 400 billion pesos via a Bayanihan 3, but will this package see the light of day? To talk about that, we have one of its filers, Marikina Representative Stella Kimbo. Good afternoon, Representative Kimbo.
Good afternoon, Jess. Thanks for having me.
Let's kick things off. I want to get your reaction with this one. You have the palace downplaying the need for a Bayanihan 3, citing enough fiscal stimulus from the 4.5 trillion peso 2021 budget in Bayanihan 2.
Yes, but then, as you know, Jess, there are two very important recent events. The first is the announcement by the Philippine Statistics Authority that our GDP has contracted by 9.5% for the entire 2020. And the second event is that we're seeing increasing prices in the food sector, particularly for pork and vegetables. And that's primarily because of supply side problems as a result of not only the pandemic, but also the series of typhoons and as well as the African swine flu. So in light of those two events, we're hoping that the economic managers will reassess the situation and reconsider this Bayanihan 3 bill that we had filed.
But how hopeful are you that the economic managers are going to sing a different tune this time around? Because, I mean, of course, last year we did hear them thumbing down the proposal, to have a new package, a Bayanihan 3.
Well, with a 9.5% GDP contraction, what that means, Jess, is that our total economic damage in 2020 was a whopping 3.2 trillion pesos. So clearly, the 165 billion pesos spending under Bayanihan 2, as well as the less than 300 billion COVID response that's tucked into the 2021 GAA, that's clearly going to be insufficient as a response to the pandemic.
But this new package also begs the question, where exactly will the government find the fiscal space for an extra 400 billion pesos for stimulus?
Well, as you know, Jess, we've taken out a lot of loans last year. The total loans as of end November is something like 2.82 trillion pesos. And if we check as well the cash reports of the Treasury, it can be seen that the end cash balance as of November 2020 is something like 1.6 trillion pesos. So that's an important question to ask our economic managers. How has that cash position changed today? So if the same amount of liquidity is still available, clearly a third economic stimulus package is the best use for that cash.
In short, there's still enough room to actually inject more stimulus. But how do you allay fears, that an additional boost is going to make debt costlier for the economy?
Well, the only reason for why debt can be a problem is if that debt is used unproductively, and that's precisely the purpose of filing a Bayanihan 3 bill, because that would indicate precisely the kinds of spending that we think are going to be productive because they're going to be targeted to the most critically impacted sector. and let me just quickly run those down. First is an increase in ayuda, and this is in response to consumption spending being the biggest driver of the 9.5% GDP contraction. Number two, uh, assistance for workers, whether displaced or currently employed. So clearly, displaced workers really need help. But for currently employed workers, note that many companies kept their workers, but then their workers actually faced pay cuts. So then, despite being currently employed, they still need some assistance. And the third would be our farmers as well as livestock producers. Again, they need assistance because they've been affected not only by the pandemic but by the typhoons and ASF as well. And secondly, um, it's important to note that ayuda is not going to be sustainable. It is clearly necessary today, but it is not going to be sustainable. So we need to help the MSMEs get back on their feet, and we need to help them to prevent closures, because as we know, business closures would mean more jobs being lost.
Okay, wow. You filed this, of course, with the House Speaker himself. How confident are you that this is going to hurdle Congress?
I'm very confident. As of now, we have close to 200 co-authors, and
Mhm.
so that's very important. But of course, maybe the biggest hurdle really is convincing also, of course, the counterparts in the Senate as well as our economic managers.
Okay. Now, also, you're one of 37 lawmakers, if I'm not mistaken, which sought a probe on the delay in the rollout of Bayanihan 2, with half of the 140 billion pesos still undispensed here. Isn't this a worrying picture of how a new package might actually end up?
Yes, but remember we extended Bayanihan to up to June. So it's important for us to perform our oversight function. So if we
Mhm.
do a good job with oversight, then that could mean a better disbursement of the 165 billion peso under Bayanihan 2. As of now, if I heard Secretary Chua correctly, he said that 109 billion has been spent so far for Bayanihan 2 programs. So that's something that we need to validate and again further push disbursement to complete the
What
165 billion fund.
What do you think has been the major holdup here when it comes to Bayanihan 2? Why was there a bit of a slow disbursement of the funding?
I think it's really a general problem of government, meaning absorptive capacity. But then we've learned a lot since Bayanihan 1. Remember the first time that Congress authorized the spending for ayuda, we had a problem with something as basic as the list of beneficiaries. But since then, we've had two waves of ayuda. Hopefully, this third wave, we're going to do it better. We are certainly going down the learning curve. And again, as I said earlier, with better oversight by Congress, we're certainly I'm confident that we're going to do a better job with a third Bayanihan.
Okay, lastly now, Representative Kimbo, should the third package be passed, what's the likelihood that there's going to be a fourth batch? What would warrant a fourth package or another package for economic recovery?
It will all depend on how effective the rollout of our vaccine program would be. So right now, that's really the first step towards economic recovery. Um, all Bayanihan packages will just become completely wasted unless we're able to effectively open up our economy by way of um, uh, expanding the coverage of vaccination.
But with the rate things are going, do you see a high likelihood of that happening?
Well, we were looking at three obstacles. The first is budget, and I think we're over that because Congress has now authorized a total of 82.5 billion, 10 from Bayanihan 2 and the rest from the 2021 GAA. And on top of that, we have very generous donations from the private sector, so we have to thank
Mhm.
them. The second challenge is logistics. That's something that again Congress and the Senate we've been performing oversight to make sure that logistical issues are addressed. Third, most importantly, I think is vaccine confidence. So
Okay.
if we that has to be addressed, particularly hesitation from the public as a result of fake news.
All right, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Marikina Representative Stella Kimbo.
Thank you.
And those are the biggest news this trading day, February 9, 2021. Catch Business World live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News.